Hey everyone, my name is Christian Ramirez and welcome back to my channel, Transcendence. And on today's episode, we have the Near-Death Experience Compilation Part 2, specifically focusing on the life review. Not everyone has a life review, but for the ones that do, this is what they have to say. And also, there's an opening message from a channeler that I actually like to follow because he says a lot of the things that I've discovered in my own research, which is very validating for me. Also, what a lot of other people who do hypnotism, past life regression, and those types of things, he talks about that stuff. So it's very interesting to see how this all interconnects. But either way, I hope you enjoy.
But that's just an illusion. It's just an experiential illusion. This is why, when you have heard people talk about the idea of near-death experience, going into spirit, communications from spirit, and they mention the idea of life review, where suddenly they experience the effect of everything they have done in life from the perspective of the people that were affected by their actions. They feel all the things those people felt, see all the things those people saw. All the people that were affected, all the beings that were affected by every action is then experienced in life review by the person that had the action, that did the action. Why? Not from punishment, but because there is no one else to experience those things. There is only you. The delay factor is only an illusion that makes it seem as if you're not those people. But you are those people. They are in each of you. So in life review, when the delay factor is removed, suddenly all the things you do, what you put out, is instantly there for you to experience from all the points of view that are now your point of view, because you are one.
And what Bashar is talking about there is what I've mentioned in previous episodes, that we are all one, and when we actually get to leave the physical body and we have a near-death experience, we get to have the opportunity to experience every moment that we've affected someone else from their perspective, for understanding, not out of punishment, because we're the only being that is judging our experiences. There is no judgment on the other side. You're not being judged by source, God, whatever you want to call it. You're not being judged by other beings. You're only judging yourself.
I saw my entire life, and I got to see it through other people's perspectives, through that exchange, and I got to see it in such a way that I understood. I suddenly knew who I was. And I could accept that this is who I am, and that I may not be a perfect person, but I could accept that this is who I am right here, right now, and that I can work on myself. I have a lifetime to work on myself, and I'm probably going to have more lifetimes to work on whatever it is my agenda is at that time, in future lives or past lives. And I feel that so that acceptance was a big lesson for me, because with acceptance, you can be comfortable in your skin and your surroundings and talking to everyone else. And with that life review and those interactions, I saw acceptance of other people as well. Before my near-death experience, I was pretty brash, didn't have much understanding of other people's point of views, and I was very self-centered. I had my own view, and it was self-contained, and if you didn't agree with my point of view, then I didn't care, and I would just, you weren't much a part of my life if you didn't believe in what I believed in. So, but in the life review, I got to see that there are other people's paths that don't have anything to do with me, and that they can live their life, and and now I have a tolerance for their path that I didn't have before, because I saw that they have their path and they have their purpose in life, And it doesn't necessarily have to agree with my path and my purpose. And I could be tolerant with that. And that was a big lesson for me as well. I suddenly could accept who I was, and I could be tolerant of others.
And that was another good example from David Bennett, who had his own near-death experience, which drastically shifted his point of view. People who have near-death experiences come back with a greater understanding. It doesn't always happen right away, depending on the person's level of awareness. They may actually have to go back. It may even take them years to process and analyze what happened to them in order for them to come to terms with what happened.
I did it, like I died, but then I was like, holy, I'm not dead at all. And I am so much better than I ever was. Felt like I was secure and that nothing could ever go wrong. There was no anxiety, no depression, no heartache, no guilt, no shame. All the stuff that I carried in my body was completely removed and gone. I was home. I'm looking down at my body, but if we're in an ambulance at this point, I'm looking down at paramedics working on me. This is when this kind of a review started happening. Everyone that I encountered, every single other person, I could feel what I had done to them. I'm feeling their pain, I'm feeling their sorrow, I'm feeling their anger. God, there was a lot of that. I'm feeling that from their point of view. And then I'm also feeling those that I did do good with as well. I'm feeling that joy or excitement or things in that nature more on the positive side. But like I said, way more negative. There was no judgment. I was the judge, jury, the prosecutor. I was everything about the judge of my own life. It was me judging myself on what I could have done better or could have changed. There was this blueprint of my life, and there was challenges put in place for me to overcome. And it was obvious that I didn't pass any. It was obvious that nothing I did actually accomplished anything, and all of these challenges were still there. They were, unfinished. For me, it was just like, it's not a disappointment, but for me, it was like, oh man, I couldn't even get one thing right on this list.
Okay, you see in the pattern here? This keeps happening. This doesn't happen in everyone's near-death experience. Remember, it's very subjective. Not everyone has a life review. Some people experience other things that are very, very similar to these experiences without the life review. But we have one problem. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this right now and you still haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Come on. I know you enjoy this stuff if you listen this much. So hit that subscribe button. Give me a little bit of support so I can keep pushing out more content. Show me some love. I'm doing this for you.
And it was just so vivid. I'm sitting straight up in the bed because I can't breathe any other way. I'm looking straight up. And he looks at the doctor and he says, you need to intubate her. She's going to stop breathing. And the doctor's like, no, we've got plenty of time. He walks out. It's not 2 minutes later that I collapse and stop breathing. So when I did that, I pop out of my body and I'm watching from overhead, and I hear the code call and see everybody rush in, and my husband kind of gets pushed out of the way. And I'm watching the me in the bed, and I don't realize it's me. I'm very depersonalized. And so I'm kind of assessing her. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a good sign. She's complete respiratory arrest. I better hurry because she's not looking good. And then that was it. I was gone from there. And so when I'm aware again, I'm still not in my body. And I'm in my sister's car, and she's driving from Wisconsin to come to Kentucky to be with me. So I'm thinking at this point, I probably was already at the bigger hospital in an induced coma, because I think that's when she left. So I'm in the back seat of her car. It's pouring rain. It's dark. And things just don't seem right. I'm like, I can't feel the seat touching me. I don't feel as dense as I normally feel. Something's weird. And so I wanted to say something to her, but I'm like, no, maybe I better not, because I'm freaked out and she's driving in the rain. I don't want to scare her. So when I come back to awareness, I'm in this void, just this very dark place, so dark that you can't see anything. And I was trying to figure out where I was, and time there is very different than time here. Time here is just very linear, chronological. There, everything happens at once, somehow without it being chaotic. I can't even explain how it works. But I always tell people, if I had to equivocate, time there versus here, that time in the void felt like what 10 years feels like here. And I mean, like literally what it feels like, not. And I can see a light way up ahead. And I'm like, oh, yes, go to that. So I go to that, and there's this boundary. And it looked like they used to make these glass squares, and they would use them in bathrooms because the glass is really thick and it distorts the thing on the other side. That's kind of what it looked like and what it was like to look through it. And so I'm peering, I'm looking through this thing, and I know that's the light's coming from the other side of it. And I put my hands on it, I can't push through. I get closer and closer and look. And as I stare, the scene on the other side becomes clear, and it's me in the ICU on a ventilator. And my daughter's there, she's standing in front of the ventilator, but behind me to my right, and I can feel her anxiety like it's my own. And I always tell people she's a Scorpio, so she's very private. And it was the first time I'd ever been in her head. And it was interesting, because we're very different people. She had this red flannel shirt on, and I remember thinking it was awfully hot for that, but that's so her. And I could see the fibers on it. And like I could experience how soft they were without being able to touch them. And so my daughter Laura has this thought, which evokes this kind of, gut level fear sensation. And I feel it. And immediately, like without thinking, I put my arms out to grab her, to pull her to me, and my hands hit the wall. And I just lost it. I just lost it. I was just so upset and angry and hopeless and all these things. And I'm like, why can't I get through there? What is going on?
And as you can see, Penny is starting to realize that she has these super senses, which many near-death experiencers do. And for some, depending on the awareness level of that person, the individual, the soul, the consciousness, it can be a completely new experience. There are some that were already aware of near-death experiences beforehand or have experienced leaving the body before. So when it happens to them, they're not surprised, and it's almost like they're used to it or they knew what to expect.
My life review began. Now, from 0 to 60, from the time I was born until the time I died at 11:11 p.m. on November the 11th, 1987, for 11 minutes. Think about that. And as I'm sitting here watching all these reviews, it was like this matrix of everything I did. And I can't go into everything. I could probably spend 3 days talking about my life review, but I will highlight some things I feel are very, very important because they changed me forever. So here I am in high school. My birthday. My sister is at my locker. And I open it, I'm about to close my locker, and there she is. She said, well, today's your birthday. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, aren't you going to tell me I'm your best friend and how much you love me? And I was like, and I'm looking around, and I have all my football team players over here looking at me. And I was kind of embarrassed, and I didn't want, why, please don't do that, Well, tell me, I'm your best friend. Backstory, my sister was my best friend. We were put in an orphanage during the Christmas holidays at a very young age, just left there like used Kleenex. So I took care of her and she took care of me. So when I didn't say I love you and I'm watching this, that was the night that she was killed by a drunk driver. I never got the chance. I never got the chance to say goodbye. I never got the chance to say I love you. And as I'm watching this, how many times in life, think about this, how many times in life have we had an argument with someone that we love, someone that we care, and our egos get in the way? Or, we're embarrassed because we have our friends over there watching us. That moment for me was a changing moment. It was a changing moment. There is not a day. I've lost my entire family. I've lost my family, all of them, by the time I was 21. All of them. So my family are my friends. And everyone knows me that when I say goodbye and I love you, they know that it is coming from an authentic place because I mean it. My next review, also in high school, on my way to my English class, 3 o'clock, late always. And I see my team players bullying
a boy by the name of Mikey. Now, back when I was going to school a long time ago, we didn't have special ed. We had just all the special ed, all the mentally challenged kids were all put in with the PS public school kids. And so I was watching them bully Mikey. And I'm looking at my watch, knowing that it's 3 o'clock, knowing that I'm late, knowing I get to class. And I looked up and I'm watching this, my review, and looking at Mikey look at me with those sad eyes, asking for help. And I passed by and did nothing. Nothing. I was forwarded to, just like in a Christmas Carol, that shoulda, coulda, woulda moment when he was crying and he was talking to his mother crying, Mommy, Mommy, why do they keep picking on me? And his mother said, because you're special. I saw that. That moment changed me forever. Forever.
And yet another life review. Peter Anthony was shown different moments in his life where he could have done something better, not out of punishment, but to give him that awareness, to give him a better understanding of what's really going on both sides. And when a person goes through this type of near-death experience, through this life review, they come back a completely different person. A large percentage of people who actually go through a near-death experience and are currently married typically break up, have a divorce with the person that they're with because the other person doesn't really understand who that person is anymore. Because usually after such an experience, the personality changes completely. And some examples are someone who's very materialistic coming back after the experience and being less materialistic, someone who was less compassionate coming back more compassionate, more loving, someone who didn't really spend that much time with their family and coming back being a family person now, spending more time with their kids, more time with their loved ones.
The spirit comes, and she's huge. She's like huge spiritually, which translates to her being huge physically. And I don't immediately recognize her, and she comes, she comes to where I'm at, and she pulls me into her arms without touching me. And I'm like, whoa, that's a trick. And so I'm crying, like ugly crying, because, there's somebody here. This is awesome. I found people, and she's very familiar to me, and I can't think of who she is for some reason. So she's holding me, she's got one arm around me, and her energy is like going around us like a tornado. She says mentally to me, she says, calm yourself, dear one. And I always tell people it was kind of like, if you've ever had surgery or had to be sedated for something, when they push it in, you can feel it wash through you. Like you couldn't fight it if you tried. That's what it was like. And so I immediately am calm. And so I start looking at her, and I look up at her face. She's got these brilliant, brilliant green eyes. And I look up at her hair, and it's this orange red like flames, and it's actually moving like flames. And I immediately know who she is. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my grandmother. And so I look at her and I'm just shocked. I said, oh my God, I thought you died. And she smiles, she's like, no, there's no death. You're either alive on earth or you're alive here. And she said, you though, you're both. You've got like a little cord that's still connecting you to your body. But if you decide to stay, that'll be broken and you'll be fully here. And I'm like, oh, all right, that's a cool plan. And she's like, you know this. And I'm like, no. And she says, yes, you know this, you learned this. And I'm like, I don't think so. And she says, yes, when you were in elementary school, energy isn't created or destroyed, it just changes forms. And it was just such a thrill to see her, because she died when I was 9 and just in perfect health. And, her death was very sudden, just over like a month and a half from an undiagnosed cancer.
And we're going to get to Penny's life review portion in a moment. I'm just showing you more near-death experience stories and sharing some of that with you in this video so you can get another idea of the other types of similarities that you may see or hear about. And as you can already tell, meeting deceased loved ones is one of them, usually with the person who has passed in a much higher state of being than when they left. And in this next clip, Penny encounters what she can only understand or call God source, whatever anyone wants to call it. Many people call it God, many people call it source. It depends on their level of awareness, their level of understanding, and that's what they just go with. And I also want to clarify that many other people talk about how this being, this source, isn't actually separate from them, that they are a part of it and it is a part of them. So it's not like this separateness that religion seems to tell us about, that God is this entity separate from you and it's not connected to you anyway. And the latter seems to be true, that it is a part of you, it is a part of all of us. We're all one with each other, and coming down here, we have the illusion of separation. We are made from the same stuff.
I got this sense that we were going to go through some things in my life, and I'm like, oh, felt like being naked in front of somebody for the first time, but all the way to my core. And I had to make this decision. Was I going to open myself up to that experience or not? And my history would tell me no, don't do it. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And so the first thing he does is he pulls up this image of something good I had done. And it wasn't like nearly the great stuff I've done, which I was a little disappointed. I'm like, oh man, this, you could have, I was hoping I'd do really well with that one big thing. And he pulls up this memory that I have of being in the Save-A-Lot grocery store. And this woman is in line in front of me, and she's short, just a little bit. And she's trying to figure out what to put back. And I don't know if single moms will all get this. Single dads will get it. That situation where, there's somebody in line behind you and it's a very small amount of money and you don't have it and you have to put something back. It's humiliating. And I remember just seeing that blush, wash over her and she's all apologetic and digging through her purse. And so I pull out the money and I hand it to her and, I could tell she's humiliated and she's like, thank you. And I said, it's not a big deal. I've been there. It's okay. Take the money. And so she took the money and she paid for her things. And I'm like, that's the thing you key in on? And he says, look at this. And he shows the scene forward years. And she's working at this food pantry. And this woman comes in who's a single mom with kids who doesn't have enough food. And she's embarrassed and humiliated. And this woman helps her. And he said, do you see how that small act of kindness that you thought was inconsequential impacted the world? I was like, wow, I didn't realize it gets me every time. I didn't realize that these small kindnesses were epic. I mean, there's no other way to say that. I did not realize that. So, that was pretty interesting. Well, then he brings up, something that I could grow from, that I would have said was bad or whatever. There was this woman that I worked with when I was a nurse, and she was like the last person I would want taking care of my family. She wasn't nice. She, was just very flippant with patients, and I just did not like her. And I'm not a person who gossips. Like if people are gossiping, I'll just turn around and walk off, so people sometimes think I'm weird. But I just always assume if you're talking trash, you're probably talking trash about me too. And I just think it's very destructive in a work environment, so I always avoided it. That didn't keep me from harboring all kinds of negative thoughts about her, though. So he shows me, because it was all justified. Like I wasn't maligning her. I was just hating on the things that she did that I didn't feel like were right. Well, he flashes me over her life, and I see her life very quickly in full detail. And I see what this woman has gone through. And I see, her father physically abusing her in full detail for the years that it happened over her life. And I'm then brought to this moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing amazing. This man that was supposed to be her dad broke her as a child. And here she's got through college, she's working, she's trying to help people, but she's still not broken some of that hurt away. And that's why she's acting this way. And he said, I want you to see this, not to condemn you, but to show you that your thoughts have power and your words have power and your actions have even more power. But it all starts with thoughts. And he said, when you think those thoughts and you get stuck in those, and it's just this kind of fixation that you have on this person, when you're thinking those thoughts, they have energy to them, and it makes it harder for that person to break out of those behaviors because you're casting it right back onto them. The whole premise is that, it doesn't do any good for you to think all these negative thoughts, because then you get fixated and you feel negative all the time. When I realized that, I'm like, oh goodness, it wasn't enough to not gossip. I have to now catch those thoughts early and stop because ultimately what affects you affects me, whether you or I know it or not. So I see in this time that we're living in this great divide, and I see powerful people intentionally causing unwarranted division over things that don't make sense to be divided over. So I learned that you have to control your thoughts. And, I've been very careful as a nurse, like when I go out to help people, it doesn't matter what their sway is ideologically. We're connected, and what's hurting them is going to hurt me, and I want to heal. And I always tell people, they're like, thank you so much. And I always tell them, it's okay. Loving you heals me. And so there I'm with God. We're going through these situations, and I know that there's going to be this opportunity to go deeper.
So as you can see in this example, she's shown what her thoughts, because thoughts are energy, her thoughts had an effect on someone she didn't particularly like in her position as a nurse at her job. There was another nurse who was doing the best they could with what they knew, even though they were abused by their father. I always like to say that there's always another side to the story, and you really don't know what someone else is going through. And this is a way to actually get you to see both sides of the coin.
On my way for CBS interview, I didn't really care if I got the interview because it's not what I really wanted to do, but it was a way to get in the union so I could go become a special effects makeup artist. So, I'd gone 6 months of being vetted to work, for senators and congressmen, first ladies. It just didn't matter to me because it wasn't my ultimate dream. So I'm in my car going over the bridge, final interview, speeding, rock and roll music blaring out of the windows that are open. Open up some gum, put it in my mouth, and I flick out the silver wrapper. And I watch in slow motion the silver wrapper spiraling slowly all the way down into the river. And I watch this gum wrapper go down the river, being met by Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, Needles, cat litter, you name it. All this pollution was being accompanied by my silver wrapper. And as this collected more and more trash going down the river, then I saw it going through lakes, and I saw it passing an oil refinery. And I watched all the residue, all the toxic energy, all the stuff, this murky stuff, come from the refinery and meet all this trash and go into our oceans. One action. I learned at that moment in life that my small action did affect someone, somewhere, somehow. Think about this. When you cross over, it's not that I murdered someone. It's not that I, robbed a bank. It was those small things in life that we think no one's looking. Boom, there goes the wrapper. That's what I saw over and over and over. Not voting, letting someone else's opinion matter more than my own, not speaking up when I should have. The shouldas, the couldas, and the wouldas. Over and over and over, I saw this events take place in my life. And then something more amazing happened. I left the Life Review, and I don't understand why, but it seemed like I was in outer space. I don't want to call it outer space, but it certainly looked like outer space because there were stars and light and planets everywhere. But it was a galaxy, and I'm looking down at Mother Earth, and before me is this light matter, like sparkling fragments of golden energy just glistering all around me, communicating with me here. Now again, I'm in essence, I'm in spirit form. You see nothing, but yet I feel, touch, smell, everything. Imagine a wolf, an Alaskan wolf in Alaska, morning early, just think of it early morning, hungry, stalking its prey. Its senses are heightened. That's how it was for me, heightened. And I'm watching this fragment of energy, and I can feel this love and kindness and compassion enter from the back and go out through the solar plexus. And I just felt the most complete love, and the voice began to speak with me. And it was at that moment I realized I was having a conversation with God. It wasn't the man in the beard and the staff. It wasn't any of that. It was energy. It was love. It was compassion. And I got to look down at Mother Earth, and I could see all the atrocities that were being done to our planet. I looked down and I could see pharmaceutical companies making drugs that cured cancer, but yet created 3 more diseases. I could see our politicians, not just in America, but all around the world. We were voting, putting people in power who were so eager to take their power away from us for the name of profit and greed. Over and over and over, I went from country to state to towns all over the world, watching a corrupt system that was about to happen and was already happening. Think about that. Our power going to people who use it against us. Sounds pretty current today, doesn't it? Over and over. Then I saw the abuse of the animal kingdom. Dolphin, bear, sea lions, walruses, cats, horses. Over and over, I could feel inside of me such compassion, but there wasn't judgment, you guys. There wasn't, look what they're doing and how dare they do this, and how I wasn't angry. I would step back and I could feel compassion. And I also, when I was reviewing my own life, there wasn't judgment on my part. Peter, you should have been better. Why did you do that? How dare you do that? It was like, you could do a better job, Peter. I was kind to myself. And as I watched event after event after event, poverty, wars, all the stuff that we do to each other, to the planet, it just didn't make sense. And I said, no more, no more. Do you want to go back? The voice said. Do you want to go back? And I have to be honest with you, I'm in this place of peace and harmony. And it's not that I'm going, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. My mind is like, I'm floating. I feel great. I feel amazing. And again, just the abuse of the planet. But then something spectacular happened. Something amazing happened. I got the chance to see what I call the unsung hero. I got a chance to see doctors, nurses, teachers, housewives, vets, all those people doing deeds that no one else knew about. No one else knew what was going on. Just they were doing their job and doing the right thing because it is the right thing to do. Over and over in my consciousness, I kept feeling you do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. Ask yourself that. Ask yourself that.
Now, these are just a couple experiences. These are just a few experiences, but this happens to millions of people. And again, not everybody has the life review. They have all different types of things happen, but there are common similarities. You have the 360-degree vision. You have the all-encompassing unconditional love being felt from an all-loving being, meeting deceased loved ones, things like that. So I just wanted you to, these cats, I just want you guys to see all the similarities for yourselves, and you can make your own conclusions with that. It's taken me years to compile all this data together, and now I'm just trying to put it all together so that it'll make sense for the common person. So to help spread that kind of awareness. But you'll start to connect all the dots for yourself. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you can be notified when I drop the next episode. I drop an episode a week, and stay tuned, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. Oh my God, these cats.